that, Nikki? No, she's gone. I just want to recognize several individuals who passed away since we last acknowledged the passing of town residents. The first one, and we should have done it last month, but I did not, was Linda Steele, Ed Steele's wife. She passed away on June 14th. Longtime resident in the Fabius Pompey community who will be sorely missed. And then on July 8th, this town lost Norm Putnam, who 89 years old, but was very well known for all of his horse equestrian skills, activities, whatever. He will also be missed. Donald Hotailing, who happens to be Veronica's brother-in-law, our IT guru. He passed away on July 9th, 65 years old. Helen Latosha, who passed away on July 11th, 91 years old. And then recently, very recently, Richard San Germano, who happened to live in my neighborhood, longtime teacher at Fabius Pompey Schools, 78 years old. He as well died on July 30th. And last but certainly not least is John Barnwell, who passed away on July 31st of this year. Lived here in the town for a very long time. Wonderful man. All of these people will be sorely missed by those who they knew and those who loved them. So if we could just have a brief moment of silence in their honor, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Seems like we've lost a lot of people this year already. So I will move on to Tom Chartrand, and I'm going to mute. So is that right? And so you will take over. Okay.
So we did receive our second half of the snow and ice removal for the highway department. So we are at full budget with that item. In the general fund, we received our first half of the year mortgage tax payment, which came in at 63% of our budget. So hopefully we'll be way ahead on that line. As far as our current is at about 47%. That's without SOTs, and our highway spending is at 40%. So unless there was any questions, I didn't have any other notes to tell you about. Those are the big picture items. The next item is reconciliation of bank statements, supervisor, clerk, tax collector. I'm not sure how we want to handle a motion on that to approve all of those bank reconciliations.
I'll make a motion that we approve the supervisors, town clerk, and tax collector bank reconciliations.
Okay.
Monthly report for the months of
May, June, July.
I think it was April, May, June, and July. And second, first by Ann, second by Judy.
Is there any discussion?
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion carried.
Okay, the next item is payment of the bills.
I'll make a motion that we approve the payment of the bills that we just audited.
A motion was made by Ann Christmas,
Second.
A second was made by Sheila Larkin.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And that was all I had on my list.
Did you want to talk about budget scheduling?
Yeah, would you like to set some budget dates? Okay, so at the end of this month, I will be sending out budget requests to all the department heads, requesting them to return by September 15th. And then we should probably set a budget workshop at the end of September. Monday, September 28th would probably be a logical first date. We usually start these earlier.
And how early?
We've started as early as 5.
Okay.
Okay, so we would need a motion setting that budget workshop September 28th, 5 p.m.
Make a motion to set the budget workshop for September 28th at 5 p.m.
So Sheila made a motion. Do I hear a second? Judy seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And then most likely our next one would be following our October 5th board meeting. If we haven't made all the changes necessary at that point, we can schedule one later in the month. That'll give us 2 workshops. That one doesn't need a motion because we're already in session for that meeting.
Okay.
No, that'll be after.
Oh, okay. So that's the same night as the regular board meeting, but to follow. Okay. Okay.
Can we, okay. I'm just thinking that's literally like 1 week, you know,
From,
just 1 week to really.
Right, so it'll be fresh in our minds what's
Yeah.
going on with it. So it's actually probably fairly
Better.
beneficial to us. Because if we don't move it to preliminary, there's no reprints or anything of the budget, so.
Okay. All right, we had more time last year, I think, but whatever, that's fine. All right, so
I
after,
think that's it for me.
and, okay, so once we put these dates, the September 28th date is good. The only reason we would do the October 5th after the October 5th after the board meeting is if we did not finish on the 28th.
Correct.
Okay, so it shouldn't be, hopefully, as much.
Hopefully
Yeah.
it'll only be a
I mean,
couple of
last year
small
we
items.
met twice
Yeah,
and we had a lot to discuss.
well, and we might find this year especially, we need to do that. So we will have to be flexible on what we decide to schedule, recognizing you also have other towns to take care of, Tom.
I don't have unlimited
I
nights.
know. I see that look on your
I
face,
know.
and I know where you're going with it, but we also have to be cognizant of what this town needs too. So
Yeah.
we'll play with that as we go.
Yeah.
So, so are we good with you then? Okay. Nikki, can you unmute so we can hear
Yep,
you?
I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, did the board get a chance to review my July 6, 2020 draft of that meeting?
Yeah. Everybody get a chance to look at that? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes from last month,
July 6th.
and I'll second it.
So Judy made the motion and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks.
Anything else?
No, nothing on my end.
Send good wishes to you and Kate,
Thank
all
you.
of us here in Pompey.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Tom Purcell, do you have?
No.
Should I take this up there to him? Well, yeah, I know. I just want to. So how does this come on? Hold on. I got it. Why is the, what, it kicked me off.
No, I see you, you're fine.
Well, why is it got,
You have it open in one of your tabs.
I can see you.
right, here, I want to have.
Can you see me?
I can see you, Tom.
Now, Renee.
Just got a couple things on the cold mix paved SE road this past, well, we finished it last week. So we did 1.5 miles of the SE road. This is cold mix paving. We still have to resurface it before fall. And then hopefully in mid-August, we're going to start our road resurfacing. Usually we do an average of 10 miles per year. So hopefully it might possibly start next week. The guys have been all busy mowing roadsides and ditching and cutting shoulders. And last week we did a lot of tree work for request of the residents. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Okay. So the only thing I also want to commend or thank Tom for is his crew stepped up when the justice courts reopened and helped us cone off the driveway here, the parking lot, so that we have an entrance and an exit. Made signs so that they directed people to the right locations, and it was very, very helpful. And I think it was very, very safe, which
You're
was
welcome.
the concern, so thanks. Your turn. Tim Petesky, Town Attorney.
Thank you. Last month, we passed local law 2021, which was the zone change for the property on 92. We're supposed to file that local law within 20 days of passage. We did not have the legal description of the property because the applicant had not given it to us until about a week ago. So I'm going to ask the board if they would repass local law number 2021, and we'll put tonight's date on it rather than last month's date on it when we file it. We'll have the legal descriptions available tomorrow. So if somebody wants to make a motion to repass local law 2021, that would be helpful.
I'll make a motion that we readopt local law 2020-1, zone change on Route 92. I'll second it.
Is there any discussion in that regard? Okay.
You want to call it?
Ren-
I can call all in favor. Should I do a roll call or no on this?
If you want to.
Carl, can you hear us?
Yes,
I'm going to do a roll call on this just because it is a zone change.
Renee, I couldn't heard who seconded that. I heard Ann.
Oh, it was Judy.
Okay, thanks.
Carl, I'm going to do a roll call for all those in favor or opposed. Are you in favor or opposed?
favor, yes, a favor.
Sheila,
A favor.
in favor. Judy,
Favor?
Ann,
Yes. Favor.
and Renee, yes. So motion passed.
Thank you.
And then I think we don't need to really go through the process for payment of bills. If we're going to be back live, and just so the public understands, we can, as long as when we were doing meetings virtually, we weren't able to physically come together to sign bills. But we did have a general abstract that listed all the bills. Tom Chartrand would send it to us every month. We would have the opportunity to look at that. He provided us with the opportunity to ask questions or see vouchers. And we took advantage of that on occasion, those of us who wanted to. And so we passed virtually, we would approve bills through the general abstract instead of actually getting the vouchers and signing them. Now that we're back live, as long as we all wear gloves, we will be signing the vouchers again individually. the whole point of not signing them before, in addition to it being virtual, was not wanting to share paper with each other. So we hope to be able to continue meeting face to face in person and be able to sign bills. So this was originally on the agenda thinking we would have to figure out a way, but once we got here, we sort of figured it out. So we can move on with that. Carl, would you like to talk about anything about the building committee? I put it on because I wasn't sure.
I want to give John Sheehan all the credit in the world for doing a draft on changing over all the furnaces in the town hall. John's quick report would be town of Pompey Hall is heated by 3 propane-fired furnaces, 3 corresponding central air units, domestic hot water, propane-fired hot water heater. The equipment is original, approximately 26 years old. It's outlived its useful life. He's done a lot of work and investigated our current bills. He has signed on to Heat Smart Central New York, a program in the 5-county area promoting heat pump technology. Through this program, 2 participating heat pump installers, Halico and Snug Planet, visited the town hall to observe current equipment and make a preliminary recommendation for replacement equipment. The goal is to reduce heating and cooling costs by replacing the propane furnaces, standard air conditioner equipment, as well as the propane-fired hot water heater with high efficiency, cold climate, air source heat pumps. He has a great report. We'll be all set to put that all together when we get the money in the budget, and he's put a lot of work into it. I give him all the credit.
Anything else, Carl?
We're working on trying to do something about getting the cupola fixed up in the town hall. I haven't, with only 3,000 to work with, it's kind of hard. We're going to have to re-advertise bids for it, and because it's going to be a lot of money with replacing the 3 windows in the cupola.
And I'll just let you know, when I got here tonight, I would have shared them with you if you were here, but we did get 2 quotes in for various parts of that work. So I'll give them to you whenever I see, well, whenever. I'll leave copies here for you.
Do you have a total on just the cupola?
The cupola total, don't quote me on this because I don't have it in front of me, was somewhere in the $7,000 range, maybe a little bit less. It's for the windows and the whatever, the entire cupola. There was a second quote that came in for just fixing the ceiling in the atrium that was damaged from the leaks in the cupola. So that was another $3,000 or so. But I'll share them with you. We can look at them. We can see what they involve, and I'll share them with Bob as well.
Yes.
And but I want you to have them, so we can.
We're going to have to make a bid to try to just. The cupola is urgent. It's too bad we couldn't bend the rules and just go over the 3,000.
I hear you, but I'm sitting next to our attorney, and I don't think we're going to bend the rules. Okay.
Not going to happen.
So sorry, but I definitely hear you, and we'll have to think of something, or maybe come up with something creative. But I do think it needs to be fixed because we don't want another winter to go by.
Right.
We'll see what we got in the budget.
Carl, this is John.
Yes.
Is there any possibility of getting the insurance company to pay for some of that damage associated with the ceiling?
No, the town hall's 26 years old, and the insurance company just wouldn't come into play. No.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt to ask, right? We could file a claim and see. The worst they could do is say no.
It'd be worth a try.
That's what I'm thinking. We did that with the highway roof, right? Have you gotten anything back on that,
I
Tom?
got one estimate, I'm waiting for, they wanted two estimates, I'm waiting for the second estimate now.
Okay, if you couldn't hear that, Tom Purcell said that he's getting, the insurance company asked for 2 estimates on the damage to the salt barn roof. And he's got one, he's waiting to have a second, so there might be some money we can claim on that roof. So it doesn't hurt to look into it, so, worth a try, John. Okay, Carl, you all good?
Yeah,
All right. Sheila, do you want,
Quick recap.
yeah, here. Sheila Larkin will speak to us about IT. Can you get yourself on that?
Quick recap, Renee and I met this week and we narrowed down the important aspects of what we're looking for IT up at the town. We're gonna have one more meeting this Friday and we should have some answers to all of our questions and a final quote after Friday. I would suspect next week we'll be finalizing everything. So that's about all right now. Thank you.
And it couldn't come anytime sooner because today the clerk's office
Yeah.
had an IT issue that we were hard pressed, thank you, Tom Chartrand, to figure out. It was difficult. So we were missing our IT person today. Okay, so I've sort of talked about COVID in August, the supervisor's report, so I'm not going to belabor the point. We continue to be by appointment only here at the town hall. That is what most other towns are still doing, that I'm aware of, and I'm able to check that out through the Association of Towns in Onondaga County, and seeing what they're all doing. And everybody is adjusting based on their facility size and their needs. So right now for us, it's working. I think when tax season starts to heat up, it might not work so well, so we might adjust at that point. So check the website. The justice courts have started to reopen. They are only allowing one person in front of them at a time. So people are required to enter from the Pompey Center Road driveway of the town hall and then exit, I guess, whichever way you want. But they come around and first come, first serve in the line for the justice courts, and then they're escorted in and escorted out and sanitized in between, and all the other fun COVID stuff that we all have to do now. So, but the courts are open, and we have started our account with FEMA. And Tom, I know there's been some purchases, Tom Purcell, that I think we can add to that account. And I think we definitely need to invest in some equipment for doing this particular type of meeting, which is part live, part virtual. We've been talking about that. So I'm going to talk to somebody I know, Tom Manlius, and see what he thinks we need. And there might be some more that needs to go into that budget line, but we might go over that amount that we originally.
We set $2,000 with the bills that are in there tonight. We're gonna be just under that, it looks like, unless maybe, right around that $2,000 mark. In order to even apply for FEMA, you have to exceed $3,500, and it has to be just for personal protection equipment and sanitizing equipment.
So the cones wouldn't count?
Cones don't count.
Really?
They may count for the grant, for the court grant. The court can submit up to a couple $1,000 worth of PPE that's exclusively used by the court. And I believe the cones, sneeze guards, those type of things will qualify under the court grant. But we can't submit those into FEMA. So I think at this point, we're probably not quickly gonna hit the FEMA number. We should probably consider getting with the justices and using that court grant, which will be much more simple.
I will talk to both Ralph and Trent about where they're at with that, because I know they're aware of that grant, so.
once we have the canceled checks from the ones that Tom procured them, the signs, the cones and all that stuff, right by the end of the month, I'll have the information necessary for them to submit. But the court has to submit. They don't want to hear from the accountant. They want to hear from the judges.
Okay. Okay. So, just briefly on the preserve, I think I forwarded to all of you the paperwork from 4 years ago or so, and then we've got our town engineer's update on the cost, updated to the present time. I've spoken to him. I think the plan is to have a meeting of the minds on, just because that is a special district, trying to figure out how we're going to finance the cost of that. And in the meantime, we're going to try and set up a similar walkthrough. I know I said this last time, we haven't done it yet, at Spruce Ridge, to look at that drainage issue, which seems to be, if you compare the two, sorry preserve, but it seems like Spruce Ridge is a little bit more of an issue of causing damage than, there's flooding that goes on in the preserve. It doesn't seem to be damaging property. So, but that's not the case in Spruce Ridge. So next, I'm just going to briefly mention something not on the agenda, but I was talking to Tom Chartrand before we started the meeting. So we did not go forward with the swim program this year, and that was a hard decision for us to make. In the meantime, I was curious what they decided to do, so I went on the Cass College website, couldn't find any information about their pool, so I sent them a message through their website and got a response actually today that said that at least through December, their pool is only being used by students and staff. So I feel very comfortable and relieved that we made that decision to not go forward with the swim program, because we wouldn't have been able to anyway. The last two things on my list are a speed reduction request. One from Windy Hill Lane, you all had I gave you all the information with their request, and I think they set it out, that they've got some issues over there. I did get a follow-up response from one of the residents there, Kevin Corson, because I did ask, have they tried to reach out to Lockheed Martin, which is the company at the end of the road, whose employee is apparently the problem there. They said they have, and that it has helped. So they do want us to submit a request for speed reduction on that road. I told them, don't hold out hope, because I don't think that it's likely to be granted, but unless there's any objection from the board, we could go forward and ask for it and let the state decide.
Might as well ask.
Right, that's what I figured. Anybody?
Definitely, yes.
Okay, and then I did get, it's not a formal yet, but I did get another one in my mailbox here from a person on Ransom Road who is concerned about speeding over there, and it has to do with construction that's going on in the area and people not slowing down for it. But I didn't get any sort of petition like we got with the Windy Hill Lane request. And I don't know, me being new to this board process for speed reductions, do we typically want petitions?
County knows all the information you can give them to support why you want it.
Okay. So, but does that mean this one individual who spelled out what his request is enough, or does it need to be a petition from neighbors that, like Windy Hill Lane did give us,
There's no legal requirement for a petition. Petitions will give you a sense of whether people in the neighborhood want a speed limit reduction, but I do not believe there's any legal requirement for an actual petition in order to request a speed limit reduction.
But it helps.
Yeah, probably helps.
so do we want to require that for the Ransom Road before we submit something to the county, or do we want to submit to the county based on this one individual's concerns and the concerns are that the cars speed 50 to 60 miles an hour down the road in the summer especially, through the blind corner. There's road construction on Jamesville to Apulia Road. We're the detour, so Ransom Road is the detour. So whether or not there's even a permanent issue or is this related to construction, I don't know.
I feel like maybe you go back to the community member and ask them if they'd like to get petitions,
All
because
right.
that's on the community member. I feel like
Yeah, I
that's
can do that.
where I would go with that.
Anybody?
I think it would look better for the county.
Yeah.
you know, it's
Have
Well,
a few more and
Okay,
versus one person.
so we'll put the one through for Windy Hill?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We've always made motions on this.
Okay, oh, okay.
I'll
Well-
make a motion, we send in the speed reduction request for Wendy Hill Lane. Second it?
Any further discussion? I didn't mean to, you.
No, I was just gonna, go ahead, you're fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we will send in a speed reduction for Windy Hill Lane. I've got it in here, so.
Does anyone know if anybody's ever put one in for Sweet Road where
At Gates or where?
Oh,
the Heritage
Oh.
Hill is?
And we've had them in, I don't know, all different parts of Sweet Road.
Yeah, but where Heritage Hill is, has
There-
anybody ever
I
done
think
one?
a year ago we did,
So you did do one. Who's we?
the town board. You
Was that, okay, memory, you know, whatever. So,
It's always town board approval to do it.
so can we pull that so I can look at that and see what was actually done? Because I don't remember doing that. So I just would like to see because,
I have to believe, oh, go ahead, I'm done with your.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was done, but I just would like to see the paperwork and the petitions. I never really saw that in front of my face. So I'd like to just see and actually do that again.
Because you can keep doing it.
Right, which I think
And,
might be a plus.
well,
If
I don't know how
it's
much
super
it's
highway.
feeding in that area as it is feeding to and from that area, if you know what I mean. I don't think it's that specific location.
Yeah, there's no slowdown, you know? Yeah,
Well, it's definitely become a congested spot
Yeah.
on the top of a hill,
Yeah.
so I
I think it would help
understand.
Dan in those long run as well, you know? But I just feel
I
like
just
maybe
know
that's something
from
we should try to push.
At the beginning of the year before COVID hit, and I was working with the people down near Gates Road on Sweet, that I spoke with the county DOT guy who's newly assigned out here.
Yeah,
What they wanted there is to make that a four-way stop. And like there is at Broadfield and Henneberry and Watervale and Henneberry. I mean, Watervale, Vale and Broadfield, but he was not encouraging at all about doing that. But the concern there was the speed coming down, because it's a downhill on the north to come to Gates, and people lose it there all the time, especially in the bad weather. So,
yeah, quite a few accidents.
yeah, and now with the added traffic from Heritage Hill, there was concern with that too. So that was not going to happen. I had asked the sheriff's office to do some special details. One, it doesn't completely relate to Sweet Road, but I mentioned in passing in my email to them that there are 5 areas in the town that need attention. And I sort of don't want to name them because I don't want to give away where they are, because I've asked them to patrol out here more for reasons, for those reasons, but I will give away one of them, which is Pompey Center Road south of the town hall. That has become an absolute mess, and I know you're here for that reason, Mr. Gillette, so we'll get to you, but that the house down there and the conditions that exist, while they're not that's not the reason for the sheriff's office presence there. That's our codes officer's responsibility, but I've asked them to patrol that area because it's just got some of the behavior on the road has gotten out of control. So anyway, there are several areas that are being looked at. I can share them with the board, but I would prefer not to reveal them publicly. Is that okay?
You can tell the board members individually.
I can tell them separately, but I may not, is it okay that I don't tell the public?
Sure.
Okay, I mean, I'm all for sharing information, it's not,
Where
that's
would
what I'm
this-
about, but this was one time I would prefer not to.
Where would the Sweet Road, information be? With Nikki in the town clerk's office? Okay,
I made a note to look that up.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's all I have. I'm going to turn this meeting over first to our attorney so that he can discuss with the public and the board what the local law about the solar farm, why we're going with an overlay district versus the simple solar farm local law, and then give the floor to John Shaheen, who has worked very hard as the committee chair on this issue, to present, do a presentation on where we stand with that. So I'm going to give you Tim.
Thank you, Renee. So in order to provide places in the town to put these solar farms, the previous board and this board has now decided that an overlay district makes the most sense. And an overlay district is simply you do those for either to protect specific areas of the town or to encourage certain kind of development. And the overlay district will provide for a zoning that allows solar farms. And John's going to go through the local law itself and explain how, in which zones the overlay district can go. But each time a solar farm would come to the town, they would have to come before the town board in order to get the overlay district, which is not anywhere unless you place it somewhere. So when if you want it, you don't live in an overlay district. So your property is not in an overlay district unless the town board comes forward and goes through a process. And it's very similar to a zone change process that we did for the last couple of meetings with a property on Route 92. Again, the main reason for that is so that you can pick and choose where it makes the most sense to put a solar farm, especially. The tier 1 and the tier 2s are going to have a different process to get permitted, and most of it's going to be done through the code enforcement office. But the larger solar farms, people are sensitive to where they're going to go, and that makes sense. So that's why we choose to do an overlay district. Most towns that I'm aware of have done something, either an overlay district or a floating district, something similar to what we're talking about doing here in the town hall. So does anybody have any questions for me about why we chose to do an overlay district rather than create, say we could put these in RA with a special permit or those types of things?
I guess my question,
Yeah, absolutely.
if we didn't do an overlay district, what would a solar farm law look like? You know, I know you say it comes to the town board, but if it didn't come to the town board, it would just.
It would be a site plan process.
Okay.
Or a special use permit process that either the planning board, this time the planning board does both special permits and site plan. So it would be a review. We could say in all our agricultural properties and our R1 properties or anything but R1, allow solar farms. Then they have to go through the site plan process. So this is just one extra layer of, so that this board gets to take an opportunity to look at where they want to place the overlay district.
And so if and maybe we'll get to this when we get into the presentation, but so if somebody wants to put a solar farm in Pompey, they come first to the town board, and then if the town board agrees to an overlay designation to their property, then does it still go for site plan
Yes,
to
it
the
does.
planning? So there's
Yes.
2 stages.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
John,
Yes.
I'm going to mute. You have the floor. John Shaheen. He's a planning board member for the town of Pompey, long-time public servant out here, very knowledgeable in all things energy, environment, etc. And he's worked hard with, I think, Sheila was on the committee, and the former town supervisor, Carol Marsh. Kevin Corson, who's also a planning board member. Jim Smith, who is a local
Jim Smith,
resident, and I might be missing somebody. Are there 5 of you? Were there 5 of you on this committee? John?
Jim Smith and, from Tree Farms, and, Jeff Brown,
The town attorney. Okay, so
former attorney.
I'm going to leave you to explain this all to us.
Okay. First off, I'd like to give a shout out and welcome to Chris Carrick. Chris was gracious enough to accept an invitation to tonight's meeting from Madam Supervisor and myself to observe the meeting tonight. And Chris is Planning and Development Board, which is a nonprofit providing assistance in energy and environmental management, as well as a host of other planning services to the 5-county area here within central New York. Chris was a valuable resource for me as a reviewer and as just a sounding board in the development of the solar energy systems proposed local law. And just wanted to give a shout out to him before I start presenting to the board tonight. Just to give a little bit of history of how we got to where we're at, there was a local, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There was a local law passed in 2015 which dealt with roof-mounted and freestanding residential solar energy systems, but it was only concerned with on-site consumption of that energy. It did not allow for the sale of the electricity generated. So it also limited the size of the system, and part of that process was the town board adopting the unified solar permit process, which was an expedited building permit in order to assist town residents in installing solar on their property. So last year, that law's been with us for 5 years. Last year, a town resident approached the town board requesting that off-site sale of electricity in larger arrays be allowed, as the landowner, this particular landowner, had been approached by a solar developer interested in placing a solar farm on their property. So based on that, the former supervisor and town board formed a committee. As Madam Supervisor alluded to, it was made up of myself as chairman, Sheila Larkin on the town board, Kevin Corson from the planning board, Jim Smith from Tree Farms to represent the agricultural interest in the town, Carol Marsh, the former supervisor, and Jeff Brown, our former town attorney. The purpose of the committee was to review the town's current zoning law related to solar energy and incorporate zoning concerned with solar farms. So with that, Veronica, if you could put the PowerPoint up. Just of note here, both of these photos are pictures of current installations in the town of Pompey. The roof mount is actually on my home, and the ground mount is Kevin Corson's property over on Windy Hill Lane. Next slide, please, Veronica. So we start out with what the statement of purpose was. Number one, to take advantage of safe, abundant, renewable, and non-polluting energy resources, to decrease the cost of electricity to residents within the town of Pompey, to contribute to an increase in employment and business development within Pompey, to also mitigate impacts of solar energy systems on environmental resources, such as agricultural lands, forests, view sheds, and other protected resources. Basically the things that we pride ourselves in as being the town of Pompey. And to create synergy between solar energy and the town's comprehensive plan. Next slide. There's a number of definitions in the copy of the proposed law that you have, but the key ones are basically net metering, which I haven't included here, but net metering, in the event that you're not aware of it, it's basically you install a solar array, it is connected to the grid, and essentially the grid acts as your battery. So when you're producing more than enough power, typically during the day, to not only power your home, but also excess power, that power is fed back into the grid, and National Grid uses that power to distribute to other customers. You get a credit. It's like putting that extra energy into a bank account, if you will. And then when you need that power, specifically at night, for example, or on a very rainy day, you draw off that credit to power your home. So again, net metering is essentially using the utility as your batteries. But getting back to the meat of this law, the key definition is for a solar energy system. We came up with basically 3 tiers. Tier 1 would be a solar energy system up to 25 kW or 50 kW for an active farm. And the 25 kW would be for a residential installation. And that includes both roof-mounted and what's referred to as building integrated systems, which are becoming, they're coming more into their own. Things like roof shingles that can actually produce solar power, windows, certain types of glazing for windows that can actually produce electricity. So essentially anything that would be integrated or on the principal structure itself. Then tier 2 would be the same 25 kW for a residence or 50 kW for an active farm, but it would be ground mounted. And then lastly, tier 3 solar energy system would essentially be anything that's not covered by tier 1 or tier 2, specifically solar farms. Next slide, please. So just a couple of examples of roof mount. On the left, you have a pitched roof installation, and to the right, you have something that would be typical of a flat roof. Not that we have many flat roofs in the town of Pompey, but we do have a few, and this would give you an idea of what it would look like. Next slide, please. Examples of building integrated, as I indicated earlier, the photo on the right is our roof shingles that Tesla is currently working on. Essentially, the roof of your house would be your solar array and generate potentially all the electricity that you need to power that house. The photo on the left is an example of a type of glass that they're working on that would also, it would be integrated into a window and it would actually produce electricity. Next slide, please. Ground mount examples, pretty straightforward. The one on the left would be what's called a rack mount type system. Takes up a little bit more area. The one on the right is what's called a pole mount system. And typically each one of those poles can accommodate a fairly large array. Next slide, please. Tier 3 examples. These are just some examples of what a solar farm would look like. These are actual photos of farms in, I believe all of these were taken in New York State. Next slide, please. Just a couple more examples of what a solar farm would look like. Next slide, please. So the general requirements, we start out with a building permit, protecting solar access, secret review for Tier 3 systems, the solar farms. Ground-mounted systems are specifically prohibited in R40, Hamlet Commercial, and Hamlet Residential unless a variance is received from the ZBA. They're specifically prohibited in a 100-year floodplain, historic and or culturally significant resources within 100 feet of a freshwater wetland, adjacent to or within an airport control zone, which we really wouldn't have a concern here, but there have been airfields in Pompey, so we incorporated that. It needs to be installed by a qualified solar installer, and that qualification is up to codes enforcement, the codes enforcement officer, to identify whether or not they are a qualified solar installer. And the reason we did it that way is because obviously there's contractors that do this work, but there are situations, actually there have been situations in the town where an electrical engineer wanted to install solar on his house, and certainly typically an electrical engineer who is doing that for a living would be considered a qualified installer. So again, that's up to the codes enforcement officer to identify whether or not he feels the proposed installer is qualified. Excess power for Tier 1 and Tier 2 systems would be sold via net metering arrangement. And this includes remote net metering. And what we mean by that is, for example, if a farmer has a couple of parcels of land that are some distance from each other, and he has a barn on one property and electrical connection capability there, and he wanted to put an array on the roof of that barn and get credit for that energy at his house 2 roads away, he would be able to do that. That's what's meant by remote net metering in a nutshell. The requirements include appropriate inspections, including electrical and by the public utility for a grid-tied interconnect. We're looking for underground for the majority of utility services, camouflage conduit for roof mount systems, neutral paint colors to the extent practical, and marking of equipment appropriately for emergency responders. Next slide, please. By the way, as far as questions go, we thought the best way to do this would be to just go through the presentation and then we'll cover all questions at the end. So continuing on, for Tier 1, which would be your roof mount and building integrated, they're allowed in all zoning districts. There's no site plan review. You simply take out a building permit. They've got to be mounted parallel to the roof surface. For a pitched roof, a maximum of 8 inches off the roof. For flat roofs, they can be a maximum of 36 inches above the roof or surrounding parapet, whichever is greater. The intent is to minimize glare to the maximum extent possible. The height limitations would basically follow principal and accessory structure requirements for a given zoning district, and the building integrated systems are to be shown on plans submitted for the initial building permit when the house is the permit to be issued when the house is being built. Next slide, please. Tier 2 permitting requirements, they're allowed in all zoning districts except R40, Hamlet Commercial, and Hamlet Residential. And again, just a reminder, these are the ground-mounted systems, residential. Again, there's no site plan review. The owner would simply pull a building permit. Again, we want to minimize glare to the maximum extent possible so that the neighbors aren't impacted. It can be installed in a side yard unless the side yard abuts the highway, or rear yards only. No installations in front yards. And on this particular point, I just want to throw out there, a couple of board members have voiced concern about side yard installations, specifically ones that they've observed, and there are some concerns about it. So as far as setback from the road. So I just wanted to throw out there, I mean, this is what we came up with without attempting to be not too obstructive to installing these, but certainly if the board has some concerns, or even the public, when we get to the point of a public meeting, there could be a minimum setback requirement for side yard installations, you know, a whole host of things that could be more restrictive if there is a concern about setback from the road. Rolling into setbacks, setbacks are doubled what the required setback for the particular zoning district is in commercial, industrial, or farm district, or double the required setback for accessory structures in the zoning district when located in residential or hamlet. And obviously, they're not allowed in residential or hamlet. They would assume that an area variance would be granted by the ZBA. Height limitations are the same as those for accessory structures in the underlying zoning district. Next slide, please. Screening and visibility. The intent is to minimize the view from adjacent properties and the roadway. We want to reasonably avoid and/or minimize blockage of views and shading of adjacent properties while still providing solar access. The law is looking for adequate screening using architectural features, earthen berms, or landscaping, specifically a continuous hedge at least 25% higher than the array within 2 years of planting. The screening shall harmonize with the surrounding area. In other words, essentially native plantings. The lot size shall comply with existing lot size requirements for accessory structures. The maximum landscape coverage is 50%, including all building structures, including a Tier 2 solar array. There's provision in the code for decommissioning should the system be deemed unsafe by the codes enforcement officer. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we get into Tier 3, or what would be the solar farms. Again, they're allowed in all zoning districts except RR40, HC, and Hamlet Residential. As Tim alluded to, they're permitted through the approval of a solar energy system overlay district by the town board. Prior to town board submission, the applicant must submit a concept site plan to the planning board for review and recommendation on overlay zoning. The town board shall hold a public hearing for overlay zoning approval. And then once that's done, the planning board would go through site plan approval and as with any other site plan approval, would hold a public hearing as well. Next slide, please. Signage, there is no signage allowed, at least related to advertising or names of companies. We do have a requirement for clear electrical warning signage on things like disconnects, transformers, and substations. On glare, again, minimize glare to the maximum extent practical. Lighting, limited to that minimally required for safety and operation. Tree cutting, minimal removal of existing trees and vegetation, or offset that removal with planting elsewhere on the property or on the parcel. Next slide, please. Decommissioning, if the array is not producing for 1 year or it's abandoned, it must be removed at the owner's expense. A decommissioning plan is required initially, and a security deposit in the form of a bond, presumably of 125% of what the projected cost of removal of that Tier 3 system would be, is required. Again, site plan approval is required. There's a minimum lot size of 10 acres. The setbacks, 100 feet from an abutting lot in commercial, industrial, or farm district, 200 feet if the property is located in a residential or hamlet district, and again, that would require a variance from the ZBA. Next slide. The height is not to exceed 20 feet, including the solar energy system when the panels are at maximum tilt angle. Some of these systems, the reason for that is they can be adjustable depending on the time of year. And during the winter, when the sun is lower, they're pointed more direct to the horizon, perpendicular to the ground, and then in summer the tilt angle is brought back down so that they're taking advantage of the high position of the sun in the sky. So at maximum tilt angle, they cannot exceed 20 feet in height. Maximum landscape coverage of all buildings, structures, and paved roads shall not exceed 50% of the parcel. Fencing, 8 feet in height with a lockable gate to prevent unauthorized entry. Screening and visibility, we're looking for the applicant to conduct a visual assessment of visual impact on public roadways and adjacent properties. Obviously, in the town of Pompey, we have a lot of view sheds we're concerned about, and we want to protect those to the maximum extent possible. A minimum of a line of sight profile analysis shall be provided, including a digital view shed report, which may be required. Something similar to what we were doing when with the cell tower, the most recent one over on Indian Hill Road, that type of a view shed analysis. The applicant shall submit a screening and landscape plan to screen and/or mitigate adverse aesthetic impacts on public roads and adjacent properties to the extent feasible. Next slide, please. For projects located on land zone farm, Tier 3 systems, we were concerned about putting these on prime farmland. So what we ended up doing was coming up with a requirement that they shall not exceed 50% of the area of prime farmland, unique farmland, or farmland of statewide importance as defined in the applicable state, federal laws, or regulations. So that would be, we're talking about the individual parcel here. For that parcel, you shall not exceed 50% of prime farmland. Tier 3 systems located in agricultural districts shall also be constructed in accordance with New York State Ag and Markets to the maximum extent practicable. Notice of any ownership change shall be given to the codes enforcement officer within 30 days of that change. Safety, solar energy systems shall not present unreasonable safety risks as identified by the town planning board during site plan approval. Next slide, please. Abandonment. The special permit and site plan approval is valid for 12 months. There's a provision for extension of that. These things can drag out for quite some time. So there is a provision for extension. If substantial construction is not completed after 24 months, right now the approvals expire. If the solar energy system fails to produce electricity for 12 months, the decommissioning plan shall be implemented. If the owner operator fails to comply, the town may at its discretion utilize the bond or security to remove the system and restore the site in accordance with the decommissioning plan. Taxation. Right now, solar systems in the currently they have solar energy systems throughout the town have a property tax exemption for the increase in assessed value of the solar energy system, and the reason for that is to promote solar energy systems and not penalize the homeowner for putting this on their home. But it's an all or nothing proposition, so you can't have tax exemption for residential, but have it for a large solar development. So we flagged in the proposed law that the developers should expect that they'll enter into a pilot agreement, a payment in lieu of taxes agreement for all Tier 3 solar energy systems within the town. Next slide, please. So the big question is, where would these likely be located? there's essentially two criteria. One is that there be three-phase power capability on that road. So these heavy lines of different colors indicate where in the town three-phase power is currently located. So as you can see, it's somewhat limited. The center red line there is Pompey Center Road, and then where it turns to the east, that's Route 20. The little jog up to the top is Windy Hill Lane. Then Route 20 continues down to Orrin Delphi Road. If you follow Orrin Delphi Road north, it goes all the way up to 92, including 92 and Orrin Station Road, north of 92. Going to the west, Broadfield Road. The major portion of Broadfield Road has three-phase power, and Henderson Road, Frank Long Road, and a portion of Waterville. Then coming down Sweet Road, all the way into the hamlet of Pompey, and Route 91 coming all the way down from Jamesville into the town of Pompey, the hamlet of Pompey. Down in the southeast corner there, Delphi Falls, from the hamlet south has three-phase power as well. So that's where the infrastructure is located. The other variable in this is the hosting capacity based on current substation capacity. And basically, the red in this map indicates very low hosting capacity. The red in the center for Waterville Road, or I'm sorry, for Pompey Center Road and Orrin Delphi Road and Route 92, that's all fed by the Do Good substation, which is up in Manlius. The Delphi substation feeds Delphi Falls from over into Woodstock. You can see a blue square there on Route 91 north of the hamlet. That's the Pompey substation. That's on the west side of Route 91. And that feeds north a little ways up towards Frank Long Road, and then south through the hamlet and south of the hamlet. And then the upper northwest corner there, where you see all the green and some blue, that's fed by the Southwood substation. So as you can see currently, I mean, this changes all the time as far as capacity goes. But this map I took off National Grid's hosting portal 2 days ago. And this is the current state of where things are at. Again, the red indicates very little hosting capacity. Keep in mind, too, that this hosting capacity includes not just solar farms, but residential roof mount systems, ground mount systems, the smaller systems that homeowners are installing as well. But the yellow and green and blue indicates more capacity. So as you can see in the northern part of the town, fed by the Southwood substation, there does appear to be capacity there if somebody was looking to locate one in that area at this point. Now, that doesn't mean that National Grid won't upgrade a substation. I understand they're doing that out in Canastota right now to accommodate a couple of solar farms that are proposed for out there. But this is the current state of affairs in Pompey. And with that, I'll take questions.
So John, I'm a question person, so I'll start. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Renee.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit further, because if I'm not exactly sure, I have a feeling some other people might not be, what you're talking about when you talk about hosting capacity for the substations that, so I take it that the substations provide the electricity for certain areas of the town, and we've got 4 of them?
Right, the
So then
power,
what do you mean when you say it's low hosting capacity? Like the substation doesn't need any more electricity?
it doesn't have the capability based on the feeder size and the equipment that's there to handle more electricity coming back into the system.
So they would have to expand their substation capacity in order to change some of those reds to other colors that are more capable of host, or more able to host? Is that what you're saying? I just want to be, I'm wondering,
Yes,
right, okay,
yep.
okay.
I mean, right now, there's a couple of, there's several 5 megawatt farms proposed up in the Manlius, Fayetteville area, East Syracuse. That's part of the reason why the Do-Good substation coming down Pompey Center Road and Orange Delphi Road are red. In Delphi Falls, there's one proposed in Cazenovia, and there's a 5 megawatt farm proposed in DeRuyter. And I think there's another one out that way, but at any rate, they all go through the Delphi substation, and that's why their capacity down there is getting limited as well, is what I presume.
I have one other question, and then I'm just curious if Chris Carrick wants to weigh in on any of this, but, and there might not be any typical size, but do solar farms have a typical acreage that they need?
Well, the ones up at Manlius, I mean, from what I've seen, I can give you some examples. There's one that's up in Green Lakes Road in Fayetteville. It's a 146 acre parcel, and they're planning on using 23 acres of it for a 5 megawatt solar farm. There's another one, the one that's proposed up on North Eagle Village Road at the corner of Townsend. That's a 45 acre parcel, and the developer is saying 21 acres of it is going to be in panels. And again, that's a 5 megawatt. And then there's the one up on East Taft Road in East Syracuse. That's a 37 acre parcel, and they're using about just under 7 acres for a 5 megawatt. So it can range anywhere from 2 to 4, if you wanted a rule of thumb, I guess. And Chris, you can chime in here if you want, but rule of thumb looks like about 2 to 4 acres per megawatt.
That's roughly correct. It can be as much as 5 or 6 acres per megawatt. It really depends on which panels they're using and the layout of the array.
Those are my questions right off the bat, so I don't want to hog the questions. So does anyone else?
I'm good. I was on the
I know. Well, sometimes it's so.
Thank you.
Nothing?
Okay.
No. Am I allowed to, if anybody out here has a question?
Running the meeting. Of course you're allowed.
Does anyone have a question?
I'm good.
Okay, everybody good? All right. I think we're good. So thanks so much, John, for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you, John.
good job explaining it. And Chris, I know you've been his go-to, so thank you as well to help us figure this out. So I guess we'll take it from there. We'll have to decide, are we looking to schedule a public hearing? And if so, how we're going to do it? I'd love to, I'm not gonna turn the camera around, but you should see this room. There's very few places to sit, given the distancing. So if we wanted to sit with masks, I guess we could put more people in here.
In the parking lot.
Yeah.
Set up in there.
Or we'll go to PCC.
We can only have 50 people outside. Yeah.
Well, let's, I mean, we'll have to figure it out. So I guess.
Someone told me that they held a garage meeting one time. They've done it in the garage before. Yeah. Never know.
So, what is our next step, Tim? Put you on the spot.
Well, you have options. You can, since it was just presented tonight, you can look through the local law, see if you have any specific questions or changes that you would like to see made before you set a date for a public hearing. Or you can just go right to setting the date for a public hearing. This would be a local law, so it requires a public hearing, and then you'd be in the process of either extending the public hearing, depending on how much the public is. It's very difficult to hold public hearings in the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And I would be hesitant to hold a public hearing quickly on something of this magnitude without maybe hoping that restrictions will be lifted and we can really have a good hefty public hearing where we get a lot of comment. It's not, because this is the first time you're seeing it, there's no reason to set the public hearing tonight unless you really want to move this thing forward.
Well, I guess that's what we need to decide. Thanks.
For meeting is one of those odd ones. It's on a Wednesday.
Oh, right. You know what? I have to say, I have a couple more questions. I wondered if you thought about somehow incorporating the ECC into this process, our Environmental Conservation Commission, in terms of if an overlay district application comes before the town board, you have the planning board's involvement at that point, but should we also include the ECC discussed in your committee?
I would think during the site plan approval process, we would look for input from ECC, like we do with most sites.
What about at the outset, when somebody comes before the town board asking for the designation?
Well, that would, I guess I'd defer to Tim on what his thoughts are on that. It sounds reasonable, yeah. Just an extra step and somebody else looking at it.
There's no reason that the town board can't on its own send it to the
Okay.
ECC without being formalized in the local law. You can always send it to them for their advice and recommendation, but that slows the process down too by another month. So.
And the other question I have, and maybe Sheila can weigh in on this too, because she was on the committee. I take it you did spend time, because I can see from some of the provisions in Tier 3, considering the impact that these solar farms would have on the scenic areas in the town. I mean, we always talk about the Route 20 corridor, and it is pretty, but there are some amazing vistas in other areas off Route 20. So I just asking.
We did.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that. And, you know, that's why we came up with, we decided.
That's why we have an overlay district, right?
Okay.
You would come to town board and say, this is where I want to put my solar.
At that point, the town board has to look at all of the surrounding areas, look to see if there's special visual impact. You would have to go through the entire seeker process in order to determine whether or not the overlay district makes sense in that spot.
Okay.
that they're-
Okay.
So it really is on a spot by spot basis that those decisions will be made.
Okay.
I point out too that, I mean, we've handled that with setbacks, screening.
Board members, and
Um,
Carl, I know you've been listening, but I want you to weigh in too on what you think we should do. Should we give ourselves some time to absorb this? I know you've probably had time, but, or what?
I got everything.
Okay. Okay.
Interesting.
I think it's important to have the public part of this whole process, and if we can't.
The public hearing is going to be well attended. If holding off some until we can use the full room, that would be helpful.
Carl, do you want to weigh in?
Yes, that public hearing is going
Got
to
on
be
mute.
well attended. Therefore, we need to hold on.
I know.
We can't hear you, Carl. Now we can.
We need to hold off on the public hearing if we can, because that means it's going to be well attended. The most important thing in Pompey is the vistas, our open lands, and the views we have. So this has all got to come together. That's going to be a big meeting, and people are going to want to talk out. And yeah, we're going to need room and space when we hold that in the future.
Yeah, and I've almost thought that if it comes to it, we're just not equipped here at the town because it's too small of a meeting space. We'll have to figure out another place to meet for that purpose so that we don't just prolong it indefinitely, given the fact that we don't know how long COVID will be with us. So, or the flu season or whatever, but so I'm inclined to go along with I think the consensus is that we're not going to schedule the public hearing yet. We can bring it up at the next meeting and we'll see where we're at, and we'll just keep it on the agenda and try and responsibly hold a public hearing so the public can participate.
Yeah, and figure out the technology.
And figure out the technology. Yes, Veronica.
We're so close.
We're getting there.
Kind of on a shoestring right
But
now.
I'm not sure about this, how well this went, but,
That was great.
It's going.
but, okay.
And in the meantime, as we discussed, I'd recommend, since we've got the time, especially that ECC, codes enforcement, and the town engineer take a look at this proposed law as well to get some input from them on that.
Especially on the process for codes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And Bob's here nodding his head, so I think that, just remind me that we need to do that, John, okay? So that I don't.
And then again, I would encourage the board to have some discussion about that side yard setback issue.
Yeah. And get some, well, and really get some clarity on what it means to be a side yard and the whole, I think, because I was a little confused about that myself. And in the meantime, there's Crystal on you. The clean energy thing, we're gonna try and do it. So we're gonna look for the 4 week and try and figure out a way to get our designation, so.
Glad to hear it.
It goes hand in glove with the solar.
Well, you know where to find me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris, and John.
John, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Where are we? Are we at public comment? Now, I put a list over, a sign-in sheet over there. You have, oh, you're good. You came to watch and you end up working. Okay. So did you want to speak?
No. Is that for speaking?
Yes.
Oh, no, I just like, hey.
Do you want, all right, this is.
That lady forced me to sign it.
I
know. You did?
Yeah, she's my wife.
Yeah. Did you sign it? Did you sign in to speak as well? Okay. I do believe though, Mr. Gillette signed in to speak, so I want, he stepped out for a moment, so as soon as he gets back, we'll hear from him and then we'll be good.
I just thought we had to have the name.
No, and you know what? I should have made it. I should have, I'll fix it for next time.
Open the door, tell them you stop reading the paper.
She's sitting here so patient.
I know, I feel so bad, the last but not least.
So
poor
patient
guy,
for an hour.
I know.
He's, he didn't leave, did he? Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. And I, Mr. Gillette, I so apologize that you are last but not least for, because you sat through this whole process.
Oh, yeah.
To be heard,
It was
so.
interesting.
Okay, well, I'm glad you think so, because you were here for an hour and a half.
First off, my name's Leslie Gillette. I'm retired, and I used to run the garage for Fayetteville Manley School. And I built some property down here, or bought it about 16 years ago. Built the house there, and it's beautiful out there, and it was quiet until January of this year, when all hell broke loose. This group down here, half a mile down, is raising hell and been harassing me for the past 3 months, every other day. They pull up to my property, no mufflers, exhaust on their trucks, and just rev it up as loud as they can. And if I'm outside, they flip me the finger. And this has been going on every other day for the past 3 months. Reason being that one of their girls lost control of her car, doing 90 miles an hour, went across the field 500 feet, jumped the ditch 100 feet, and almost hit my building. And I went up there to address her, and you can see she was high on something. Took off and went down to the junkyard, and they had a tow truck there. 15 minutes later, got the car out of there and her. Called the police. They showed up an hour later. Went down, talked to them. Of course, they didn't know nothing. But that's when the harassment started. And they haven't been let up ever since. And I've had the police there. And yesterday, I had to call the police again. They ran across them 2 cars, trucks, and a white one, no plates on it, and then a diesel one, 13 times in front of my house, revving it as high as they could. So I ended up calling the state police again. They showed up, and he went over and talked to them. And it was quiet last night, but I'm waiting for it tomorrow. Here it comes again. I've talked to the owner 4 times. He doesn't really give a crap about it. I called a state police down here, is retired, on Pompey Center Road, and he knows about the whole situation, and he's been working with some of his friends on it, and he knows it's a drug lab. I lay awake at nights. I can hear the cars pull in there. 5 minutes later, they leave. And this is go all night long. I can hear them when they take off. So what are they doing in 5 minutes and then leaving? They're buying or either dropping off. So, and this has been going on for a long time, and I've had enough. The neighbors across the streets are Johnsons. They got a for sale sign on the house. They stopped at my place and said they had enough. So, and I got 1 more month, September. If nothing's done, I'm selling my house and I'm leaving. This is bull crap. I can't take this anymore. My mother-in-law, she's 90 years old. She hears that ruckus outside. She cries and runs into the bedroom.
Where is this? Going on?
Half a mile down the road. Just everybody should drive.
20?
No, Pompey Center. Everybody should drive down here just for 5 minutes and look at this property. Just this past week, 7 cars were towed in there. I drove by coming here tonight. There must be 20 cars and trucks out front, about 30 people standing there in the front yard.
Are we going to cite the owner? I thought that was in the works.
These are his tenants?
There is 3 trailers out back, and you can see the lights on in there. There's a bunch of them living in the back, and there must be 8 of them living in the house. I have 8 residents down here that are sick of it, and they want something done. And their phone numbers are right there.
So where are we with citing the property owner? Because I thought we were giving him 30 days to.
I'm trying to fix it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
We are gonna.
Because I think if we can,
I talked about this, I talked to him about this, we've got to try to figure out exactly what we can go after.
well, and just so, I want you to be clear, and you weigh in. There's a lot of things going on here. It's not just one, like, place that you're gonna get relief, because you've got harassment going on. That's
We
criminal.
had 6 police officers there
Yeah.
since past 3
There's,
months.
You write any tickets?
So they all say they can't do anything because they can't catch them.
I've actually seen a police officer down there and talked to him.
And then there's the issue of the failure to comply with zoning
requirements in the town, so
That's separate, and that's another.
Well, they're running the junkyard out back and
I
they're
know.
stripping
I've
vehicles.
been by there and I've put it up on Google Earth to look at the property from above. Anybody who wants to see it, go on Google Earth, you can look at it.
You know,
The third problem is the tenant, their tenants. And until, and eviction is not, there's a moratorium on evictions
right now, and I think the property owner knows that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, he knows
I talked to him yesterday.
Said something.
No, I've talked to Ralph this morning. I'll talk to you about
Is
it.
there a lot of town, in Syracuse, if the police go to the location more than 3 times, they'll shut the building, they'll shut it down.
Is that Syracuse?
City of Syracuse. Whether it's, you know, you have to have, the police gotta be there, it's either a party, they're gonna be cited, they gotta be cited, that's why I asked you, were they cited?
Every time I get an answer from a police officer, says, well, we can't do nothing because we can't catch him on the road.
Well, that's what they gotta do.
That's for traffic.
You know, but the police come down there and you see them for 15 minutes and then you never see the police again.
Have you been able to catch a license plate number or somebody?
The state police officers wanted me to get some plate numbers. And he says, I know they're switching plates from vehicle to vehicle. And so I got one plate number, but I haven't been able to get the other ones. The worst guy, which is the Dodge Ram with no exhaust, I haven't been able because he does it so quick and he's gone. Or he'll do it at night, 11 o'clock to 11:30 at night.
How about a camera?
When you're sleeping,
How about a camera?
I can't, there's
You-
time
I
my
got game
phone.
cameras that'll sit there and videotape a deer dancing around the camera. Put it on the front. Pardon?
Can you lend them one?
No.
I get my cell phone, by the time I get my cell phone dialed in and get it up, they've done their
Right,
job
and
and
that's
they're
what I'm
already.
saying, with a trail camera, they're doing it, you know, at just about what time. You set up a couple of them, let them do this in front. You at least have photographs.
Yeah.
And they're infrared, so it's not like they're.
I got it on the
see them.
phone where they did it and they're taking off. I got a picture of them taking off. It's on the phone, but you know, the police just, they don't want to do anything.
They need something to put their teeth in.
Well, I got 8, 9 residents had enough. Who want something done, or I'm leaving too. I probably can't even sell my property. Once somebody sees that junkyard and the mess it's going
Well,
on,
that's code, that's codes.
you know, they go, who's gonna buy my house?
I mean, it's code,
Nobody's gonna
that's
buy
a
it.
town's code. The site them on the
We need
junkyard.
to get them
Cited, the owner.
and get them recorded.
Exactly.
And then.
He's part of the problem.
So let's get.
I just talked to him
I've got
yesterday.
4 things I can cite them on right now.
Okay, then let's start.
And, I mean, I've had the DEC there, and they will not find the people because of the situation. They're not finding anybody right now. I mean, I've talked to them several times about going out there. And
Yeah, I know.
There's gotta be something legally can be done. How can this keep going on? You know, not just me, but you talk the phone numbers, you talk to those people.
I
Talk to some of them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll keep it in your pockets. Hire a police officer.
I don't like pocket ain't that deep.
Well, I mean,
I'm not rich.
If you
but
got a
I
friend,
got
if you got
somebody.
guys on the state police, I'm not sure where he is, hire a police officer. Hire a security guy, somebody that, a third party. I'm not giving you legal advice, he's security, but if I'm having a problem with one of my apartments, and we have with the Department of Public Safety and the police department, we all work together. I mean, you're in a tough situation. I wouldn't like it.
I'm sick of it. I'm shaking. I'm so nervous at night. I can't sleep. Mother-in-law's crying. I mean,
That's not right.
no, it isn't right. And these people they're untouchable and they know it.
Well, until they get nailed.
Yeah, well, no, it seems like
Can
they got
you shut the
phones.
building down?
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, it's codes.
Other than, if they are.
Life
a
safety.
legal junkyard, then yes, you could.
All right.
You'd have to bring them to court, as the supervisor said, once they become,
Don't they have all these vehicles out there? There's no plates on them.
That's not,
so those are violations which tickets can be issued for. Once the tickets are issued, then the court system takes over. And that's where ultimately you'll find redress if you find redress.
Right.
But in the illegal activities and the harassment, the town doesn't have a law enforcement department. We only have a sheriff's department, not only. The sheriff's department comes and enforces the law, or the state police enforce the law in the town of Pompey.
So I still put up with it.
Well,
He's telling you, I mean, if you hire a sheriff, hire a sheriff. If Paladino can hire a sheriff directing traffic, you can hire a sheriff to sit there.
well, just so you know, we've asked for some special detail down there, so, for the next couple weeks. So I don't even know when they will be there. So the element of surprise can sometimes be helpful, but the problem is unless they sit there on it for 24/7, the chances of being there when something happens. And one thing I'd like to talk to you about, or you can talk to Bob about, or whatever, when is the best? But I mean, I don't want to say too much, but because I don't want to like.
Well, the state police know, he said they already busted one guy down there. He was in Delphi a couple years back for a meth lab.
So they know.
He's living
people
there.
are
Yeah,
known to
they know that he's living there. So, and they're all down in the basement of the house. You see a whole bunch of them just go down underneath the house. So there's something going on. They're either selling it or one or the other. Right under our noses.
How about life safety, electrical, sewer? We have to
They
shut it
got
down.
3 kids living there. Why don't Child Protection Service come in?
I saw 3 little girls.
Yep.
The problem with that is you have to do something to the hotline to just to neglect or abuse, and what are you going to allege without knowing what's going on? So it is a very much an over the kind of situation where you feel like you do stuff. And I think we feel the same way, because if not for the moratorium, at least they could get evicted. Be evicted, and that would at least check that off the list. The junkyard stuff, that's not entirely theirs, is my understanding, but a lot of it is. But in the bottom line is it needs to be cleaned up.
Majority of it's theirs.
The majority of it is, okay. So I mean, the whole issue is that you can't. The problem is there's no evictions right now. They should be evicted. If their landowner, if they're
He won't do it because I talked to him yesterday. Because he paid up the $7,000 that he owed him in back rent. He says he's fine with it.
This is why I need to serve him
right,
and let him
right,
handle that.
right.
Now, I've talked to him, many of the residents around here know him personally, says he's part of the problem. They think he's fronting the money. Now, I've read a couple people that live and know the guy.
We can't rely on
I know.
on that,
Here's the
but
thing.
yeah, but we're not unaware, and you and I have had a conversation a
Yeah.
while ago in my office. I know you've been working with Bob, and as I said, the options are really limited. I have to agree to some extent with Bill because you need somebody there 24/7. You do. Or a camera is a good idea. It really is a good idea. You know, I mean, they're not gonna, but it's not just your problem. You know, you're not the one, you shouldn't be the one necessarily to take this all on.
Well, and I'm just had enough of it, and I can't live like this anymore. And like I said, I'm gonna move out. So I probably can't sell the house. Who wants to buy that?
I know.
Just as the instance, they're right across the street, and there's signs there. They already left, but the house is still for sale, and they said they had enough.
Well, I'm sorry for your situation. I think we all are. It's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, if they're doing drugs and everything, I'm sure they got guns. How far are they gonna take this harassment towards me?
The police I mean, maybe you don't want to file charges against them for the way they're behaving.
I would love to file charges. They're harassing me now, but they're even gonna get worse. Well, even the officer told me, he said, you really want me to go down there? Because you're putting the complaint in? Says they're gonna come back at you. I said, yeah, I know, they're already doing it. He says, well, that's up to you. He says, I can go down there and talk to them, but they're gonna know that you doing it.
Well, I mean, I don't tell you what to do, and I don't know what a court would do, but I mean, if criminal charges were filed, if you could get an order of protection, you know, things like that. There are remedies with the court system, both criminally and civilly. So there's some options that really, but it has to be wanting to take them on you personally if they're harassing you, because that would have to be your complaint. Right, and I mean, I don't know if it's a safe thing for you to do, but, and then Bob wants to talk. We'll talk with him and get that, we need to get that filed. So we'll get a paperwork in order and get that before serve and or one of the judges here.
John
Thank you.
Shaheen says via chat that they have trail cameras that use cellular network to give you an alert and send the footage to your phone.
Yeah, without knowing.
Thanks, Veronica.
Yeah, I have one in it where it works. Whoever said that.
John Shaheen.
Detector cam, it works, it shows you everything and you can have times and dates and everything. I got it, DJ.
I'm 100 feet off the road.
You set it up or something.
Mounted on a tree.
Hold on or
Yeah.
something where they don't. It'll disappear.
Right.
Yeah, but, you know, they're very smart, 'cause they know when the cops are coming.
Well, that's kind of easy because they can probably have a scanner.
Yeah.
I got one.
Yeah, they know when the cops are coming, because they scatter and it's quieter and quiet for a day, and then they start in again to another day later.
John Sheehan has a good idea. Mount it on a post in the field.
Yeah.
Les will be talking.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, Carl, I agree. So do I
Post on the field.
to adjourn?
I make a motion and we adjourn.
Okay, I didn't make a motion to second anything tonight, but okay. You don't need to. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Good night, everyone. Nikki, I hope you heard something.
I heard it all, just the very last. I couldn't hear who made the motion to adjourn.
It was Judy and then Sheila.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Carl.
Bye-bye.